Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special clip for GenYnot. We are on our spring break / hiatus. We've been gone for, oh, you're not on spring break?
No.
Is that only for like college students and not for like 30-year-olds?
Or it's only for people who's going to be in college for the next 10 years. I.e. Jordan Howard, because she's never.
See, she can like never be respectful. It's kind of sad. But you know, some people, you have to respect other people's experiences. I grew up with manners.
And you tell your mom?
Some other people don't.
Hi, Jordan's mom, because she's viewing. She's our one viewer. Hi, Jordan's mom. Hey, Jade. Continue.
We talk about what's going on with Ukraine.
Yes.
Ukraine is all over the news. We need to have this conversation. What are like the seasoned people thinking? What's Putin thinking? What's Obama thinking? Should we be afraid? Should we not be afraid? Is this like hot and we should know? What can we do? What can millennials do? I'm going to put it over to Daniel, and he's going to moderate this conversation.
Are you not going to answer?
You know, as Jamira said, we definitely want to talk about Ukraine and everything that's been going on and all the crazy stuff, especially because so many of the protests have been led by students and young people, right? So just as a real quick recap, a very, very short recap, if you need more information, you should definitely go to BBC. I think that they have some of the best coverage about this. But in November of 2013, the Ukrainian government basically decided to abandon its plans with European Union in this idea of they were basically getting prepped to join the European Union, right? Which is very much what a lot of the citizens in Ukraine wanted. However, the president had very, 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 very close ties with Putin from Russia. And so as the protests started, Russia basically offered an economic lifeline for Ukraine, from cheaper gas to also just loans. And student protesters started hosting kind of riots everywhere. And as they did this, the Ukrainian government did what I believe is the worst thing you can do as a government during times like this, which is giving your riot police and all of this freedom to kind of do what they want, right? Even with peaceful protesters. And so as we tie into this conversation and talk about a larger conversation as to where we are now, you know, as Russia is basically trying to invade, and obviously the American government and President Barack Obama is trying to have these very long, strict conversations with Putin and the Russian government. You know, how do we relate this to millennials, and you know, what do we need to know moving forward? And so, on one relating point, I would love to talk to you all, kind of in thinking about major student protests that have happened lately, thinking about Occupy Wall Street, not necessarily the war aspects, but really that protest and that, I think, that camaraderie that we felt when Occupy Wall Street was going on. And so did either of you have Occupies going on in your city, and like what was that like in that experience as a millennial, seeing like as that movement was being built?
Yeah, the Occupy movement is a very interesting movement. We had an Occupy.
Is it a movement?
It was a movement, and I think it's still continuing in many places. So I think the Occupy movement was pretty interesting, and we had an Occupy Philadelphia, which I think our government handled extremely well. We made sure there was regular meetings with the Occupy organizers, as well as I think there was just a common courtesy to making sure that, one, we recognize the importance of being the ability to peacefully protest. And so I think if governments work in collaboration and just allow a space for people to be able to protest the things that they see wrong, I think it can lead to a better society. But what's going on currently in many places of the world, particularly what's going on in Ukraine, is that you have protesters who are being kind of criminalized, and some have been hurt and killed in the last few days, and it's just a very terrible situation that I think needs to be addressed. And how that happens, I think our government officials are working on that currently, and they have more information than us, so I trust their judgment.
So I would say, questions that I would ask, why is it important for millennials to be engaged in this issue? In this issue of foreign policy is happening over there and not over here, and why should we care over here?
Well, right. Did you first have an Occupy LA?
I mean, yeah, we had an Occupy LA, but like there was no like fighting. There was no. It was just
So
people
it was
in
like a different
City Hall.
experience.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, so why should I feel this connection? And can we kind of, is there like a deeper connection? Because I know Occupy Wall Street was about economic. It was about the economy, and people tired of, like no job. We're tired of Wall Street and people on Wall Street winning, but people on the bottom line losing. So why should millennials be engaged with what's going on in Ukraine and Putin?
Well, I guess first to go back to Daniel's point, which is the fact that people should have the right to peacefully protest, regardless of why they want to, regardless of what that issue is. But I think why should millennials care about this issue is why should millennials care about any issue? This is the world in which we will inherit. We are the largest youth population the world has ever seen. And so what's going on foreign policy-wise from the youth perspective as an American, I think is extremely important, because if this conflict continues, there's always if we don't, like, foreign policy can lead to wars. Like, it can lead to us not having access to resources, specifically if we are at war or at conflict with a country that we have a huge trading relationship to. So I think all of those things have to be considered. And I mean, there are a lot of our young people who are in the military. So if you talk about, like, why should millennials care? Because you have family members who could be affected. You as a consumer could be affected by a good or services that is no longer available because we are at conflict with a country that we trade with.
Right, and I think going along with this millennial caring package, right? I think that you have to think about outside of, like, the self, outside of the trading, outside of what it means for us. I think you also have to think about the way in which millennials think. Millennials care. We know that, right? Millennials care about the world. Millennials care about people's lives. So that's why I think it's so amazing and important to have people like Tim Pool from Vice, who's literally had been recording the protest with his Google Glass on, right? And this is before it even got as big as it is. And having these sort of news outlets that show us that, like, lives are being lost, right? There are people who are as young as us in these protests standing up for what they believe in and peacefully standing up for what they believe in, and either being shot or being, beaten, their lives are being threatened in some way or another just because they disagree with their government. And just to think, like, imagine if, we've all been at protests at some point, and imagine if you were at that protest just trying to say what you think is right, and being attacked for it. And so, I think that millennials should care for this, just like we care about corporations. We care about our corporations going green. We care about our corporations having good labor rights. We care about all these things. So why not hold the governments accountable, right? Not just our government, but governments around the world, and seeing in this digitally connected world how so many of us interact.
So kind of like global citizenship.
Global citizenship. I think that's important. I kind of have a cynical perspective on this, because I feel like whenever the U.S. and whenever one of our allies might be in danger, we care. Whenever our gas is in danger, we care. But, like, this isn't like peaceful protesters that are being killed. This is not new. Like, this is something that's been going on for the past for the past 5 years all over the world. Like, the people, and you talk about protests that the Egyptians and Arab Spring is, like, still going on, and people are still dying and still being locked up for not doing anything. And I kind of have a problem as an American when we care more about what our gas and what our economy will be affected, and I have to have, like, a personal connection, and my life might be stopped when somebody else is dying, when this happens all over the world.
Well, I would actually disagree with that, because I think that, going back to why millennials care, there are millennials organizing for other peaceful protests.
I'm saying me. I'm not saying.
But I'm trying to comment. If you hear the whole comment, you would probably understand my point. So what I was saying is that I think there are millennials advocating and are protesting for a number of issues and are trying to bring these issues to the forefront. I think why the U.S. feels the need to get engaged in this particular topic is because when you think about foreign policy and you think about how the global world or market works, is that the way in which a government is able to protect itself from from adversaries is that you have allies with other countries, would then protect you from, if you go to war, you now have a country that will step in and help you in that trajectory. And so that's why many people feel like the U.S. is getting engaged, is because these are our allies. These are the people we have partnership with. And so if we're thinking about long-term and sustainable and making sure that we continue these relationship building, that's why it's important. Not saying that any of these other situations are important, but I think that all of them affect how we as Americans live. And I think the reason why millennials should care is going back to this idea of global citizenship, which is that any injustice is an injustice against me, regardless if you are in in Sierra Leone, if you are in Uganda, if you are in the Ukraine, are you in America. If a young person or a person in general is affected by an injustice, we should all stand up, say something, protest silently or not silently.
I agree. I'm just saying that it is American national. It's like national news when our stuff is in jeopardy. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying that like global citizenship should be further than I might not be able to get natural gas because of what's going on in Ukraine. And it's like we're acting like we care and we're such good like global citizens.
Well, I'm not acting. I
but
care.
We care because like our stuff is being impacted and it's quote unquote like our people. And what if this could change my lifestyle? But like what if it doesn't have anything to do with me? I should still care. That's all I'm saying is that global we need to like broaden that definition of global citizenship and not just when we have a stake in it.
So that's what the definition of global citizenship is, caring regardless. And so I'm not using it in the context of what you're referring to, what's happening in the media. I'm using it in the context of that regardless of if I'm personally, we are all personally affected by any issue that affects another human being from facing injustice. That's my view on global citizenship. Regardless if I feel it here in the States, I should recognize that any injustice against any person in the world is a direct assault on my rights. And so I do agree with you when we talk about like things that the America economy is personally affected by. That is like blasted on the news and blasted on radio, but we never talk about these other incidents where it just doesn't get enough publicity to really create change. So what are we going to do then? What are we going to do?
What are they doing for us?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I think we should talk about it, and I think that we should make sure that I think that we should like dedicate to like time to like talk about it and act like, because though those stories matter. But there's so much more that we can say about this. This is not like some like black and white issue. We'll see how this plays out because it will definitely be playing out for a really, really long time. So hashtag GenYnot, what are your perspectives on this issue? There are so many different perspectives and we can have a different perspective. So link us up, hashtag us, connect with us while we're on our break. We want to hear from you. What do you want us to talk about? We're only doing so many responses, but what's important to you? What other issues should we talk about, whether that be domestic or global?